Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Keith, and welcome to my view from the 40. The Ottawa REDBLACKS won tonight, so I guess we should celebrate. Let's get back to that in just a moment. Let's recap last week, shall we? The Ottawa REDBLACKS had this huge collapse in the fourth quarter against the Toronto Argonauts, so when you woke up on Friday morning and you were looking at the paper, everyone was trying to figure out what in the world happened with Ottawa. Well, then the news turned to Johnny Manziel and his terrible CFL debut. He was absolutely atrocious in a game where he coughed up 4 interceptions. So when you have two teams coming off really bad performances, someone's got to win. Fast forward to tonight's game, and that's what we basically had. We had the REDBLACKS looking to restore some dignity in the Eastern Division against a team which has pushed all their chips to the center of the table and said, we're all in on Manziel. Manziel didn't look terrible from my books. I mean, his numbers weren't fantastic, but one of the things that stood out to me was the fact that this guy's going to run. And run he did. Although there was one interesting play where he was running, he didn't really seem to know how to slide in the play, and he took a dirty hit. A lot of fans were booing, and I didn't understand why, because when you hit a quarterback in that vulnerable position, you're going to get a penalty. Although it was interesting because later on, Harris was in a similar standpoint and also got hit, but there was no flag. Anyways, when you look at the numbers for the two quarterbacks, you would think you would have a blowout game. You had Trevor Harris, who threw for 487 yards, whereas Manziel barely threw to 200. But at the end, Ottawa wins this game 24-17. So the Red Black faithful, it was interesting, and I use faithful in quotes because there are a lot of fans who sit behind me who jump in off the bandwagon. When Ottawa's doing well, they stand, they cheer, they love it. But when they falter, trade this guy, trade that guy. The typical Ottawa sports mentality that unfortunately we see from time to time, which makes the really true fans look bad. So here's the thing. Ottawa pulled off the win, so I guess we should celebrate. But this is where I kind of come in on the parade, and I'm thinking we should have absolutely dominated this team. I mean, on paper, Montreal is the worst team in the CFL, but we didn't. A last-minute drive is what got the deal done. And this is all well and good, and let's go and celebrate the victory. But with games on the horizon against Edmonton and Winnipeg, you're not going to be playing the Johnny Manziels. No, you're going to be playing the Mike Rileys, and you're going to have to get your stuff together. So I'm cautiously optimistic with this REDBLACKS team. The reality is that an Eastern team will most likely represent in the CFL's Grey Cup in November, and why not Ottawa? But we also want to make sure that we're as competitive as we can be, and I don't think we're there right now. I don't put the blame on Harris. I found it comical when I was reading some of the posts last week when Ottawa had that huge disappointing loss against Toronto, saying, oh, it's all Harris's fault. Sure, I suppose that the offense could have done more in the second half, but the fact that Toronto was able to come back and score so many touchdowns doesn't really rely on Harris or anybody else on the offense. That's a defensive issue. And as far as tonight's concerned, again, Ottawa looked decent, but they didn't by any means blow me away and impress me. If they did for you, then that's great, but I didn't see that. What I saw a team probably playing less than what they're capable of against a team that they absolutely should have blown out of the water, but they didn't. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward with the REDBLACKS. Again, cautiously optimistic, don't want to take away from their win. But at the same token, when they're going up against stronger teams, they're going to need a much stronger output. These nail-biting games are exciting, but as we inch closer and closer to the playoffs, Ottawa is going to have to be a lot stronger if they're going to contend, especially for the Grey Cup. That's my thoughts, and I'd love to hear yours. As always, you can reach out to me on Twitter at CFL_fan, Facebook.com/WhittyWhittier, and WhittyWhittier.com. Thank you so much for checking this out. My name is Keith, and that's my view from the 40.